And another one bites the dust for the Pittsburgh Pirates as they lose this game 4-2 to the San Diego Padres after picking up a win just a night ago. So the Pirates now lose this game and the offense continues to struggle. So win, lose, or draw, the offense continues to struggle, and the Pirates now 13-17 on the year. We now return with another edition of Pirates Postgame here on Pittsburgh Sports Live. Spent about a week or so covering the NFL draft, to say the least. The NFL draft talk dominating here on Pittsburgh Sports Live, but now it is back with another edition of Pittsburgh Postgame, and this one a Pirates edition. Brubacher, a solid start, not his best, but still a solid start. The bullpen does okay. The offense, once again, not enough. And they weren't able to overcome it in this game as the Padres get them 4-2. As I said, the Pirates now 13-17 on the year. I'm your host, Mike Asti, and I will be joined by Kyle Dawson, who is a play-by-play broadcaster for the Washington Wild Things, as well as the Trib High School Sports Network. So, Kyle, without any further ado, definitely glad to have you back on. We had you on last year, so get to talk maybe a little more interesting baseball, win or lose. Last year, I felt like nobody was caring because of the pandemic and nobody being there. So this actually goes somewhere. The Pirates do lose this game 4-2. They do make it interesting towards the end. And the Padres are a team that entered the year with tons of hype, but have not necessarily fully delivered on that hype, and a team the Pirates have been able to play very competitive against. But what would you say is the story of this game? I mean, Brubacher, he didn't go out there and throw a one-hitter, which seems like you almost have to do as a Pirate pitcher these days. The offense continued to struggle. Brian Reynolds was able to crack one, but it's almost feeling like now we're in a little bit of this team has come back down to earth, and maybe this is the real Pirates, and it's going to be pretty rough for them to stack too many wins unless they get incredible performances by the rotation. They do lose this one 4-2.
Right, and it's not easy. I mean, Yu Darvish is a tough customer when it comes down to it. I mean, that's not an easy guy for this lineup to go against. Sands, I know not a lot of people think he's great, including me and Gregory Polanco going on the IL, but Hunter Owen making his debut for the Pirates today ends up leaving the game with after being hit in the hand. But I thought some things went pretty well. It's just Darvish is a tough customer, and this is a game that the Pirates, if you tell me, a couple months ago, they're going to be 13-17 after 30 games and into the first week of May here, I probably would tell you you're crazy. But I wasn't one of the people who was as down on this team, thought they'd lose 110 games as maybe others were in this city. I think the pitching staff is probably, especially the bullpen, has performed up to snuff and what people expected from this bullpen, at least the people who are kind of in the know, if you will, and know a little bit more than just screaming that Bob Nutting won't spend money for the Pirates.
Right.
I thought the bullpen would be great coming in. They've been great. For the most part, JT Brubacher, not a great start today. I mean, it's a rough pitch count. 93 pitches in 5 innings isn't what you're looking for, but he's been one of the big highlights for this pitching staff. Brian Reynolds has obviously been a big highlight. He goes deep to the opposite field today, which is obviously a good sign for him. Colin Moran has steadied off a little bit, but a multi-hit performance for him today. Right. It's just this lineup at the bottom of the lineup just isn't going to get it done at the major league level, and the Pirates know that. We're not looking for Tom and Owen to be big pieces of the next winning team here in Pittsburgh, but I thought this was a game, just an instance of baseball. I mean, the Padres had a couple of opportunities early in the game they didn't take advantage of, and credit JT Brubacher making some pitches there to get himself out of innings, especially in that third inning after he didn't want to face Hosmer, just put him on first base with the base open and got the next guy in Myers to ground out. But you could also look at the Pirates and saying a missed opportunity. I mean, they in the 6th inning, they get the Reynolds home run. They get guys on first and third with nobody out and end up only getting one out of that. That's not ideal if you're a Pirates fan. And after that game being tied, it's a lot to ask of this bullpen and this pitching staff to continue to put this lineup to bed. And they weren't able to do that tonight.
And Yu Darvish is not the best pitcher to face when you're trying to get back going as an offense. Kyle Dawson here joining me from TribLive High School Sports Network, also does podcasts with the Come On Sports Network, and of course the Washington Wild Things. And yeah, the Pirates lose this game 4-2. Yu Darvish is a rough pitcher. He's been around the block. He has experience. Say what you want about him, but certainly a rough pitcher to face when you're trying to get back going as an offense. And I think in all reality, entering the season, the bullpen was going to be a strength, and the bullpen has been a strength. There's several members of this bullpen that could argue for an all-star berth in addition to Brubacher. So not only do you mention that they're 13-17, they were above 500 last week, and they're certainly not a good team. They're going to still lose 90 some games, but the 100 games might have been a bit overestimating how bad the team was. They played above themselves to this point, maybe in the year. However, in addition to the win-loss record being not as horrendous as you thought it would be, there are several players that legitimately are having all-star seasons. JT Brubacher in particular, 5 innings, 2 runs, 6 hits allowed in this one, 7 Ks, 3 walks. So the strikeout walk ratio is still good. More pitches than you would like him to throw in this game. But that's why I was hesitant, as you kind of were too, to say this was a bad start. I mean, he didn't throw a gem, but it's not 6 hits is a bit much, but 2 runs off 6, 5 innings. He's at least going 5, which is something to be desired for many of the Pirates starters. And he's still a young kid. This is not, if that's his worst outing, you're going to take him having this be his worst every 3 outings.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, this is a team that's been for him. This is a team that's been searching for consistency from its starting rotation, whether that's Brubacher, he's been giving it to him this year, but Trevor Cahill has a good start or two. Otherwise, he's been rough. Mitch Keller seems to follow this mold of being horrible and then being phenomenal.
Yeah, roller coaster.
Phenomenal. Yeah. I mean, he was great last night in the win in San Diego. And I think a lot of what his problem.
And we know what happened with Chad Cole. Yeah.
Right. And Chad Cole's hurt, and this team's still without Steven Broughton. Keep in mind, I don't want to be this guy, but a 13-17 team is playing without arguably its best player right now, and Key Brian Hayes is still waiting to come back. So this pitching staff, I think, has been better than it's expected to be. I thought the starting rotation would be absolutely brutal going into the year, especially with Brault not being on the major league roster with the injury early on. Tyler Anderson has exceeded expectations. I think he's been competitive. I think he's been really good in spots. And listen, Richard Rodriguez, if you're a Pirates fan, you're going to be really disappointed when he gets traded in a couple months, but I think he is going to make a contender very happy in a couple of months. He has turned into, I mean, a couple years ago, you could go back to 2019 and you could find some outings where Pirates fans were calling for this guy's head early on, probably including me. But this guy just finished up the reliever's perfect game yesterday.
He's been perfect,
27 in a row. I mean, he's been absolutely ridiculous. He's allowed 1 hit in 12 1/3. I mean, that is ridiculous. And I think Ben Cherington, if he plays his cards right, can get a pretty good return for a Richard Rodriguez. And he might not be the only one that goes. I mean, I've been saying all along to the Pirates fans who are watching this, and you can take my word as an ardent supporter of this team and what they're doing. If you don't want to take it, you want to throw back at me that Bob Nutting won't spend. I get it. Believe me, I get it. But you got to buy into this process. And if you're going to buy into this process and this rebuild, you've got to understand that how this rebuild works is when they do have good players like Richard Rodriguez, they're going to have to let them go and stockpile some talent in the minor league system. So
certainly,
the pitching's been good. I mean, JT wasn't bad tonight. It's just a matter of you went up against Yu Darvish and didn't take advantage of your biggest opportunity.
Yeah. The pitching was not bad. And honestly, not only just Rodriguez, but Howard is another pitcher that a lot of teams would love to have. I mean, he works more than anybody. Honestly, I made a joke that that the only man working more in Pittsburgh is my colleague Alan Saunders than Howard. Every day, Howard's out there on the mound in some capacity, win or lose, out of the pen. So the Pirates have consistent members of the bullpen that certainly could help a contending team for sure. Rodriguez, not even the only guy, but certainly the premier guy pitching the perfect game at this point. And obviously that's, innings in a month span. It's not like a starter doing it, but still incredibly impressive out of the bullpen. I do want to ask you though, because as much as the pitching's been great, at least recently, to say the least, the bullpen's been mostly good all year, but the starters have certainly picked it up and have certainly been good enough to lead this team to victories. The offense obviously has not been good enough. And even though they won a game against the Padres just the night ago, 2-1, that's another game where the offense once again didn't perform. So they were able to overcome it in that game, didn't overcome it in this game, but the offense has pretty much been quiet for a while now. You're looking at that game against the Cardinals back on May 1st to be really their last performance of respectability. and they're still losing that game 12-5. So the pitching didn't show up in that one, but you're looking at 4-2, 2-1. So you win, but only the 2 runs, 2-0 and 3-0. They got shut out back to back. So it has been not just bad, but it has been really rough for the offense. And Reynolds is hitting. You mentioned Colin Moran's been hitting. Polanco was even hitting a little bit before the injury, actually. And there are others that have been hitting for a while and kind of spotty, but it's not been enough. And Ke'Bryan Hayes certainly still out, and it remains to be seen what happens when he returns. But we've seen this lineup be tinkered with. It seems like Derek Shelton, he's clearly aware of a rebuild, but he doesn't want to just sit down and lay down, and he wants to try to help this offense out. What is the best lineup for this team right now and then when Hayes returns? And does that mean that a guy like Phil Evans, for example, who was hitting 326 as recent as 2 weeks ago, now all the way to 226 off the bench in this game, struggled last night, has he cost himself a spot not only in this lineup as a premier hitter at top part of the order, but in the lineup every day altogether with his fate?
Right. And I think he's struggled, and there was no way around it. I don't think Phillip Evans, I think he's a fine baseball player.
Right.
I think he's a fine hitter. I don't think he's going to light the world on fire like he did for the first couple weeks of the season,
Sure.
going out there on a consistent basis. I mean, it's just not what the guy is. And that's a tough question, because I think this lineup is going to struggle just because of the names and the talent that is in it right now. Listen, in the end, there's a lot better things coming forward. Travis Swaggerty had a great night yesterday in AAA. Nick Gonzalez absolutely tatered a baseball today down in High A in Greensburg, and he's obviously a guy that's coming forward. I mean, this minor league system looks good.
Right.
You're eventually going to get a respectable major league lineup out of that system. This is not a respectable major league lineup. When Hunter Owen, I don't want to pick on the guy, but he's not a respectable major league player at this point. There's not a ton of hype surrounding him. Kai Tom is, he's had his bumps and bumps since kind of coming into the fold here in 32 plate appearances through tonight.
Right.
Adam Frazier is a guy who you'd expect to hit a little bit more. He's sitting at 289, but the bottom line is,
well, Newman
right.
196. I mean, harping on Frazier, Newman's been the problem.
And you were hoping that Newman would bounce back. He had a rough year last year, and you would hope that he would have bounced back. And listen, in the end, this is 30 games that we're talking about, so it's not like we can make too many judgments. You mentioned at the top of the broadcast here, the Padres are 18-14. They were expected to light the world on fire. 18-14 isn't lighting the world on fire.
Right. Yeah, they're barely hanging on to a playoff berth.
It's 32 games at this point, right? There's 162 games to play in this season as we go back to the full season. It's just so hard to judge a team off a month, but I think you're starting to see where the Pirates are going to be offensively, especially without Ke'Bryan Hayes in the lineup. But, 2 weeks ago, like you mentioned, we're arguing for Phil Evans to find a spot in the outfield, whether that's Gregory Polanco coming out or whoever has to come out of the lineup for Phil Evans to be in there every single night when Ke'Bryan Hayes comes back. I don't know that we can argue for that anymore. You might still put him out there until Polanco is able to return. But frankly, I'm not opposing. I think we talked about this last year, bringing some guys up. If Travis Swaggerty has a good couple weeks down in AAA,
I was going to get there.
Bring him up.
Yeah.
I mean,
I was definitely going to get there because, the conversation on these shows, as you would imagine, even as recent really as 3 weeks ago, was I understand Ke'Bryan Hayes is going to eventually return. I understand Ke'Bryan Hayes is going to get his spot back in the order in his position, but you got to find a spot for Phil Evans. He's one of the few power hitters on the team. He's hitting the cover off the baseball. You look at last year, he's really hit ever since being a Pirate. You look at him and Colin Moran, they're the only ones who have popped in the bat. Colin Moran's average might be something to be desired, but he has still consistently got himself on base, consistently getting the ball up in the air, is still hitting a couple hits in this game. So he's legitimizing his spot in this order. Whereas pretty much ever since that argument existed in favor of Phil Evans, he has since really struggled. Got one hit in a whole week at one point, plummeted his average from literally 326 to 226. And I think also everyone understood 326 was a bit much for him. But if he would hit 275 and bring you some power in a lineup that doesn't have much power, because you're not going to expect it every day from Reynolds, even though you get it in this game, that would be fine. But now he's barely getting contact. He's swinging and missing, can't get on base, and his average is poor. So he's not really legitimizing his spot in the order any further. It seems like Derek Shelton finally maybe agrees that he needs to take a breather. That happened in this game, and he did nothing in this game to help jumpstart the order or to help jumpstart himself. So it'll be interesting to see how much he plays moving forward. Obviously, Brian Hayes talking to everybody, even the people that are the closest in the know that are covering this team every day. Nobody really has definitive answers. He was supposed to come back 2 weeks ago. It was really only supposed to be 10 days. So we don't know. There's no reason to rush anything, though. Obviously, he's the cornerstone of the future. This is a situation where even if they're not going to lose 100 games, maybe some of us were too hard on the team, they're still going to lose 90 likely. They're still going to, even now, 13 and 17 is better than we thought, but they're still bottom of the league. They're still out of the playoff race. Playing above themselves is still not good enough to legitimize rushing anybody back or doing anything against any progress just for this season, because it is a rebuild. The situation from people thinking they should have kept things around and broke up the 2015 team too early and the money, that doesn't matter today, obviously, as you detailed. And it's about the future as well as now. So with all of that said, you mentioned Swaggerty, you mentioned several others. Normally the thinking, I'm sure, would be like we saw with Hayes at the end of the year, you bring him up for a month, cup of coffee. Hayes was able to impress in that final month. But is there now a point, and this maybe wouldn't have been the case even a week or so ago because they're winning enough that you can't quit on a team that's above 500. But now that they're several games below 500, now that the offense seemingly is sleeping through games, and now that despite J.D. Brubacher and Tyler Anderson you mentioned in a few quality starts here or there, this team just isn't doing enough to win. Do you bring him up sooner? When would you like to see him up? Get his cup of coffee with the big club, and maybe would you like that to be more than a cup of coffee this year?
Yeah, I think it's, and Swaggerty's not the only guy. Don't get me wrong. I think
sure, and minor league baseball has started now, so
another,
you can see what they do there.
Right, and Cole Tucker should get another chance at some point.
Okay.
The bottom line for me is if we're taking this season how it should be taken, we should be taking a look at every single guy that we have an opportunity to take a look at that could be a part of this club's future, whether that's next year, 2023, beyond, when the team is going to compete again. You need to find out what some of these young guys that are knocking on the door, guys that have had opportunities that maybe haven't panned out, i.e. Cole Tucker so far, can do, and if they're going to be a part of that future. To be clear, I don't think Tucker is a part of this team's next winning formula. It's probably Rodolfo Castro or Cruz or another guy that's down there to play shortstop along with Nick Gonzalez at second base. But I want to see guys. I said the same thing when we talked on the post game last year. I want to see guys. If they're going to lose and they're going to be bad, I want to at least be entertained and see what they have going forward. So I'm completely fine with bringing guys up. I don't know when the right time is. Obviously, I'm not going to bring Travis Swaggerty up just because he hit well in one game in AAA.
We're just getting minor league season started.
Right, and the guy's never played above high A ball in Greensboro. He played there in 19 before everything went haywire in 2020. So he's playing in AAA for the first time. That's too soon to bring him up. But I think it's not going to be long, perhaps, and we're going to see how well the Pirates draft in the upcoming draft. Obviously, they've got a big decision to make at number one. But again, if we're going to look at guys in the minor leagues, if they're going to have success down there, why not give them a bone and give them a chance at the big league club? I'd like to see more of Miguel Yahuwah. We saw him make his Pirates debut a couple weeks back, I think, against the Cardinals, and he looked pretty good. They've got guys. In the end, they've got guys that need to be figured out in this organization. You can only do so much of that when you're developing down in AAA. I want to see some guys pitch at the big league level. And that's been my whole argument with Mitch Keller, too. People have been calling for his head after his bad starts. I don't want him down in AAA. What good does he do the Pirates down in AAA? You're not developing things at this point with Mitch Keller. You need to work on things facing big league pitching and get through your things, your mental hurdles, everything that Mitch Keller's going through against big league guys. And I think that's very important for Keller to be able to bounce back. And he did last night. I know everybody hates Mitch Keller because they think he's going to be
He's been better recently
2.0, but he was excellent last night. And I think the biggest hurdle for him, and I'm not in the guy's head, and I'm not looking at tape like he and the coaching staff and Oscar Marine's looking at every day of what Keller has done. But he's the example of a guy that needs to stay up in the bigs, as opposed to guys who maybe need to come up if they're going to get an opportunity, a Travis Swaggerty or a Cole Tucker again, or whoever it may be down in AAA that succeeds for a little bit and then is able to come up and make a contribution at the big league level. Because in the end, I'm not going to be very happy if we're watching Wilmer Defoe and Hunter Owen and Gregory Polanco and those guys playing in the lineup all year. I'd rather see guys that could be a part of this team's future. And I think Swaggerty for sure is one of those guys, but there are several of them down in that system that can be a part of it.
That is a difference to this rebuild and maybe rebuilds of the past that I think fans should understand. The minor league system is not bare. It is not barren. There are players down there. There are guys down there. Yeah, there are players that can come up that can at least entertain you as a fan, that can be a part of the future. There are players to look at individually that maybe wouldn't have even been the case a few years ago. So that has kind of been replenished. That is one certain key thing you have to do when you're rebuilding an entire franchise yet again. Unfortunately, Mitch Keller is always going to be tied to Tyler Glasnow in some respect, and Glasnow is arguing for best pitcher in baseball. So people are going to always connect those dots. I haven't heard much conversation about Cole Tucker. So that's fair, I guess. Why? I just think
he's
having a nice life outside of the Pirates, obviously.
Absolutely. I just think you give him another shot. I mean, the guy clearly has not panned out offensively. He's still the good fielder, and they didn't give him much of a crack at shortstop last year. But if he's going to be a part of the future, or you think he even has a slight chance of being a part of the future, you've got to give him another shot. And he's only going to do so much developing. I put that in air quotes in AAA. I'd rather see him face big league pitching and try to sort it out. And if he can't sort it out, cut him loose and be done with it.
And especially,
I don't want to see him face AAA pitching. I know he can hit down in the minor leagues right now. So it's the same way with Keller. I know he'd dominate down in AAA if he went down there. I'd rather see him work his things out against the big league guys.
Yeah. And in Cole Tucker's end, he could try a position that doesn't have much depth right now at shortstop. And we're not really seeing much impressive baseball from who's playing shortstop right now. So who knows? Could it get much worse if you throw out Cole Tucker there and he hits 190? Maybe trying something else could be a week or two. It wouldn't hurt you to go 2 weeks and see what Cole Tucker can do. So we will see all of that for sure. Kyle Dawson joining me, a play-by-play broadcaster with the Washington Wild Things, part of the Come On network there, doing podcasts for them, and also TribLive High School Sports Network. Kyle, you mentioned Mitch Keller, and obviously he started last night, not really a focus of this game, but I just want to ask you overlying in general, because this actually occurred with Tyler Anderson earlier in the year. You may even mention Yahari. Some of those pitchers, like Yahari, had a great start, but only went 4 innings or so. Right. Tyler Anderson earlier in the year went 4 innings, then was getting the hook. And now we've seen him, once he's allowed to stay in there for 5 or 6, he can really give you quality starts. Obviously, JT Brubacher giving you that, but he's really been the only pitcher that Derek Shelton's been comfortable to let just have the baseball and then go 6 or 7 and then decide from there. You talk about Mitch Keller, several others. It's been a very quick hook. And obviously you have to have a quick hook when you're seeing Trevor Cahill and Chad Kuhl go out there in 3 innings and allow 8 runs. But Mitch Keller's had games where they have been really, really bad, but there's also been other games where it's been not great, but it's been okay. 4th inning, he's gone. Do you like how Derek Shelton's handling this pitching staff in terms of the quick hook, knowing how young some of these guys are? And since this year is really not there for winning, for me, I wouldn't mind letting a Mitch Keller, for example, dangle for a few innings. If he's pitching, obviously if you're giving up 9 runs, you have to leave. You're not going to embarrass the guy. But once the 4th inning comes, if he's, say, allowed 3 runs off 5 hits and maybe he's losing it a little bit, see what happens another inning. Let him try to work his way out of it with runners on base or something like that. It's not really occurring. Do you like the protection? And this is an overlying conversation really in Major League Baseball, but do you like the protection that Derek Shelton's using on those young pitchers? Or would you rather see more of the hook released a little bit like occurred with Tyler Anderson, who's now become the 2nd best pitcher on the team since that occurred? And he's had to pitch out of some jams to get there.
Yeah. It's tough because I think it's just the way that baseball is going, and I don't like it. There's a lot of the new age stuff that I love, and I'm all in for. Starting pitchers going 2 or 3 innings, like we've seen the last 2 nights in San Diego before Yu Darvish tonight, disgusts me. I hope it gets thrown into a heap and left in the past. But I just don't think it's going to happen. In regards to Keller, I think a lot of his issue, and I mentioned this a little bit, I don't know that I think the hook is coming because of pitch count, and I think the hook is coming because he's struggling with his command and to throw strikes. And when
he
you're
threw
not doing
47
that,
pitches in an
when
inning.
you're not doing that,
Yeah.
you can't tax the bullpen all the time.
Right.
I mean, he had that really rough inning. I forget which start it was, a couple starts back at home when he had 36 or 40 pitches in the first inning. I mean, that can't happen if you're going to go deep in games.
47.
If he pitches with confidence, and he did last night, he has the stuff. And I know a lot of people don't want to hear it because everyone wants to just bash the bad starts and bash that he can't throw strikes. This guy has great stuff, and he dominated in the minors. He shows the flashes of it. He showed the flashes of it last night. If he's going to do that like he did last night, I'm not saying he has to be that great every start, but if he's in the zone and hammering the zone with confidence with all of his pitches, especially that fastball, he's going to have a lot of success in this league. And I know that's hard to look at when you watch what Keller has done off and on this year. If he can get consistency to the point where he can go out and give you 4 or 5 good starts in a row before there's a dud, there are going to be duds with every single pitcher in the Major League Baseball, maybe with the exception of Max Scherzer and Jacob deGrom aren't going to go out there and give up 8 runs in a game. But Keller, I think you do give him a little bit more of a leash. Again, let him work through some stuff. Let him work through guys on base situations. It's the same thing I would argue with. There are probably some relievers that get yanked too early in this day and age of baseball because I'd rather see those guys work through their own jam or let them get out of it. But I think it's more of a conversation, like you said, it's more overarching toward what Major League Baseball is doing right now and where the game is shifting with all the analytics. I would like Derek Shelton to leave these guys out there a little bit longer because this bullpen can't carry this team for 162 games. And if they're throwing 5 or 6 innings a night, I've got some bad news for you if you're the Pirates.
You could argue the bullpen, not only have they been great, but they've been great in unreasonable circumstances.
Right.
So the bullpen's being asked to come into some of these games in the 4th or 3rd inning, and I'm not even exaggerating, and that's a regular basis. You're seeing Howard pitch every single night, which is funny, but that's even a lot for any reliever. He went weeks without any break. It's just crazy stuff. And you're seeing a closer go multiple innings, which isn't the norm either. So some things are new age for the Pirates, but then some things are not, just because they have to deal with the circumstance of these starters not going deep in games. So that is the catch-22. If you handle the starters with the pitch count, then you could potentially screw your bullpen. And I feel like the bullpen has kind of been screwed, but they have seized the day. So I guess they're going to keep on doing it because the bullpen has delivered to this point. And when you see starters taken out of games throwing a no-hitter, then obviously if you're struggling and allowing runs, you're not going to be able to dangle in there. I would just like to see it for young pitchers in terms of development, because if you don't think you're going to get any more from them dominating the minor leagues, and the year is not a year you're planning on winning the pennant, does it really hurt you to let Mitch Keller work out of this bases loaded jam in the 4th inning rather than take him out when the runs are going to be against him anyway? His ERA is not even being helped by this. So in some respect, I wouldn't mind some of these pitchers being dangled out there. The Pirates lose this one 4-2 to the Padres. Then now we'll move on to a series against Chicago Cubs. Before we get to preview that game where Trevor Cahill will get another start, as he's actually picked up steam a little bit recently there. So we've seen Mitch Keller, we've seen JT Brubacher, who pitches another gem, but JT Brubacher's also been unlucky that some of his best starts have been against the opponent pitching really, really well. Yu Darvish tonight dealing with a one-hitter, and J.A. Happ recently as well. So he finally got lined up as that quote-unquote ace in the lineup, and now it's hard for him to collect victories. So I guess that's a double-edged sword. But before we get to preview that Cubs series and wrap things up here, Kyle, we have seen 4 no-hitters to this point, and right now, well, now we're after midnight with this late start here against the Padres, although it's an earlier start comparison to these past 2 games. But May 6th. So May 6th, as we're speaking here, 2021, we've already seen 4 no-hitters, and that includes Madison Bumgarner, who I'm giving him the bump just because Major League Baseball makes a rule. It's not his fault, even though it's certainly harder to go 2 more innings and do the same thing. So 4, including Madison Bumgarner, no-hitters to this point, including 1 On the same day the Pirates lost this game to the Padres, with John Means, who's actually a West Virginia University alum for local connection, ends up throwing a no-hitter for the Orioles against the Seattle Mariners. And he's not certainly a guy that you ever would have expected that. He's actually a guy that, like some of these pitchers we're talking about the Pirates, very rarely goes deep into games, and yet threw a no-hitter in that one. Does this mean anything for you? Is it an aberration? Is it an oddity? Is this more of the norm? Are we going to see this again next year? Are we going to finish out this year with 10 or 15 no-hitters and set records because that's the pace we're on now? Does this somehow connect to maybe less performance-enhancing drug use and being towards the tail end of the steroid era if we're ever done with it because players still are getting suspended for it? But what does this mean, and does this mean anything? Am I making too big of a deal out of it? Is it just randomly a coincidence, or is there something here to having this many no-hitters and even close call one-hitters this early in a baseball season? Because early May, 4 no-hitters, that's pretty big. That's getting close to record proportions for a full season, and it's just, I guess, odd to say the least.
Yeah, well, and Major League Baseball doesn't want to recognize the 4th one in Bumgarner because I would swear, but I might get you guys in trouble for that. It's ridiculous with the situation revolving around Madison Bumgarner.
Right.
But listen, I don't know that it is.
I mean, 3 is still a good amount too.
It is, and in a month that's pretty impressive. I think there's a couple things that contribute to it, and first and foremost being what the biggest problem right now I think with baseball is in your 3 true outcomes. Guys don't care if they strike out anymore. Guys are going to see pitches and draw walks. Guys are going to try to hit the ball over the fence, and they're going to swing out of their shoes and miss breaking balls and get fooled by pitches because of it and make weak contact because of it. I think that probably contributes to it a fair amount. I think the pitching is so far ahead of the hitting right now. There's way more information for a pitcher. I think they were talking about this on might have been McHenry or whoever was talking about it a couple nights ago on the broadcast on AT&T. The pitchers are just way ahead of the hitters right now. And I think it might not even have been the Pirates broadcast. I think might have been the Twins broadcast I was watching. But talking, I think it was Justin Morneau, actually, the funny Pirate connection that was talking about it. The pitching is so far ahead of the hitting right now. With all the information they have available, they know the hitters' tendencies, they know their hot zones, they know where they have to locate a pitch and what pitch they have to throw to miss a bat. That they're just so far ahead of what hitters have available and disposable to them beyond just watching film and trying to figure out and catch up to what pitchers are doing. So I'm not overly surprised that we're sitting at 3 or 4 right now. It definitely is a lot for a month. But in the end, the pitching is just so far ahead. These true outcomes have been run roughshod throughout this league right now. So I don't know that it's a huge talking point at this point, but it's definitely not normal to have this many no-hitters in the span of a month. So it's got to be something. I just wonder how much it keeps up or if it lasts and we do end up getting kind of this torrid pace throughout the rest of the season with these guys throwing them.
It almost is happening at such a frequency that you hate to say this for a guy, but it's almost another day that ends in Y, another pitcher going for a no-hitter. And honestly, again, 4 no-hitters, including Bumgarner, we could have about 8 right now. There have been several other pitchers to flirt with it through 7 innings, and Bumgarner's was through 7 because of the doubleheader. And again, not his fault. That's the rule of Major League Baseball, so I'm giving it to him. But still, that's complete games. So I guess I'll officially say 4 pitchers pitch a complete game for what was officially a victory and don't allow a hit. But there are several others who threw the 1-hitter, including one against the Pirates. The Pirates almost no hit this year against J.Hay Happ, who's a veteran. So you're seeing it from all-stars. You're seeing it from 20-year vets. The career seems like it's winding down. You're seeing it from journeyman pitchers. You're seeing it from Joe Musgrove, former Pittsburgh Pirate. The Pirates connected to several of these. It's just weird. All across the board, you're seeing it. Who knows if that's going to continue? I think it is a conversation because of the clip that we're seeing to this point. And while we're in a different era than what it was 10, 15 years ago in the midst of the steroid era, even though players are still getting suspended for that right now, Robinson Cano would be a star, for example. We're still in a period of time that we're not far from the Yankees and teams setting records for home runs in individual seasons and winning just off of home runs and building teams just off of home run hitters, and yet you're seeing pitchers do this. So it is kind of a surprising thing. We'll see if it continues or not. It's interesting, and it almost does in a way suck for, say, a John Means that means that despite West Virginia University and the Orioles obviously promoting it happening for him, the national coverage I feel like isn't there. Growing up, it was just such a rarity and such a big deal, and it's just not that way anymore. We're almost losing its luster a little bit and maybe almost getting spoiled. So we could easily have, you know how baseball is, Kyle. We could easily have the next 3 months go without any no-hitters. Easily. Yep. Wouldn't shock me at all. But right now we have 4 in the first month, at least 3 officially. I don't know how Bumgarner's counting his.
Major League Baseball doesn't want to recognize the other because it hates recognizing accomplishments. So.
Right, exactly. Especially because my aside from this is, if you can recognize the victory for the team or the loss, then I don't know how you cannot recognize individual accomplishments. If you can't recognize the individual accomplishment, the losing team should file a grievance that how did we lose this game, that apparently nothing counted in the middle of this game. And you're quick to put an asterisk on Bumgarner, but don't want to put asterisks on several other things that maybe would correct those conversations. So it's just incredibly hypocritical and kind of funny. But nonetheless, I will digress for the purpose of this program to get us out of here. Trevor Cahill going to the mound for the Pirates. Chicago Cubs back as the opponent over there at Wrigley. Thoughts on that series? Thoughts on Cahill in particular? Because the beginning of the year, he obviously was brought in as a veteran to maybe bring you something of value. Maybe him and Polanco could have brought value. Polanco's struggling. He's still not been able to get back going enough to bring you too much value. I don't know really what pieces are there besides Rodriguez and Howard that'll bring you value. And then maybe Cahill could have been that guy as a starter. Obviously not part of the rebuild, but maybe could bring something to you. But earlier in the year, he was just pitching so horrendously that there might have been a conversation to just dump him altogether. If he can't bring you value, what is he bringing? He has pitched a little better recently. What do you need to see from him, and what do you expect out of that game and series, in particular Cahill? Because I would imagine that if he goes back to sucking, the conversation of why is he here would rev up again.
Yeah, I think it will, and he hasn't faced the Cubs this year, at least in the couple series the Pirates have played with the Cubs, and they're coming off 3 wins against the Los Angeles Dodgers, and that's not something that a lot of teams are able to say throughout the course of the year over the last several years. I mean, they had a 5-game losing streak earlier in the year not too long ago, a week or two ago, lost 5 in a row. In fact, lost 7 of 9. This is not a very good Cubs baseball team, and it's going to get worse when it comes to next year because they have a lot of contracts that are up. Rizzo, Bryant, Javi Baez all have contracts due for next season. They won't all be back for the Cubs. So I think the Pirates are kind of at that level, maybe a little bit worse, obviously, because they don't have the major league talent right now that the Cubs have. But frankly, I'm not expecting much from Cahill. I don't know that anybody should if you're a Pirates fan. It's not really a knock on Trevor Cahill. I think if you talked about Trevor Cahill coming in here in 2016, it would have been a hell of a lot better than Ryan Vogelsong coming in here in 2016. I think Cahill was just past the point where we can talk about him as an above average MLB pitcher. So I wouldn't frankly expect much from him. I think the Pirates are good enough to win a series against the Cubs. Hopefully they can get some of the offensive issues figured out, and they're going to a ballpark that'll be wind aided. So it's going to help them out a little bit, hopefully. But in the end, this is just not a team that, if the pitcher's not going out there, the starter, and giving you a quality start, you're going to have a tough time winning games because this team doesn't have any boppers in the lineup. Nobody's going out there and hitting 30 home runs for this team. And that's just the reality. So if you're not hitting it, it becomes that much harder to score runs unless you're going station to station and playing the small ball game, which isn't entertaining. But if you're not able to do that, you're not getting guys on base and moving base runners, and you're not hitting home runs, you're going to lose a lot of games just because you don't have that instant offense that a home run provides you. So I wouldn't expect much from Cahill. I'd like to see him bounce back if I'm a Pirate fan and kind of start to get on the right track. And if he can be a guy, and I think going into the year, my whole philosophy with Trevor Cahill was eat innings, be a guy that can go out there every 5th day and maybe give your team a chance to win, but he's not going to be any better than a 4th or a 5th starter. He's had maybe 1 or 2 good starts. I mean, I don't really count a 5 inning performance, allowing 1 run and a loss to San Diego. I think on his might've been his second start of the year. I don't really count that as a great start. I mean, he had 8 strikeouts in the game, but
yeah,
he had the quality start against Minnesota. I mean, that's really his only good one. I mean, 3 of the 5 starts, he's given up, 5 or more runs, 5, 7, and 7. And that's not major league quality from a starting pitcher. So I'd like to see what he does against this Cubs lineup. It is not an easy lineup to battle against, and especially playing good baseball right now. I wouldn't be surprised to see the Pirates drop to 5 below on Friday at 13 and 18. So not to be confused with the store, but they will probably not win the baseball game unless Trevor Cahill could impress. He could go out there. It's baseball. I mean, it's so much different on any given day.
right.
And the old adage is anybody can win on any given day. They get a good starting pitching performance from Trevor Cahill, they've got a shot. They don't get a good starting pitching performance, he even probably gives up 4 runs in the first couple innings, you're out of the game against a team like the Cubs and Zach Davies, who's just going to mow through a lineup if he can be on and be sharp. So I would expect the Pirates to compete in this series. I don't think there's any reason to think as a Pirates fan that they won't compete. It's not like they're getting blown out right now. They're just not winning because they can't hit. And that's going to happen throughout the rest of the remaining 132 games. So you got to be patient. I mean, it's a rebuild that is going to take some time. And if you went in, listen, the best way, Mike, to go about this season is to go in with absolutely no expectation into a game. And you're not going to be disappointed if you had no expectation going into the game. I think that's the right way to do it. But I know that's not the easiest thing to do too. So I'd encourage people to be patient. I'd encourage people to watch and let them compete and see what's a part of this club's future, because I think they've got a couple guys that are up here at this level right now that can be a part of the next winning team. And I'm a Ben Cherington guy through and through. I love this new regime. If Bob Nutting is to spend a little bit once they get closer to that winning mark, then obviously people are going to start to turn around a little bit. But excited to see fans back at the ballpark, excited to see people have the opportunity just to go watch this baseball team. And I know they get a lot of flack in this city, especially compared to how much success the other 2 organizations have had, especially in regular seasons. You just got to be patient with it. And this is, it's just a rebuild. You got to deal with it. This isn't 2016. People want to go back, and I go back to, people want to go back to 2016 and say they had a 98 win team and they brought back Ryan Vogelsong as their like ace and brought in Jonathan Neese and trading Neil Walker. And it's not 2016 anymore. This is a different regime. This is a rebuild that has gone really well so far. And they've stockpiled a minor league system that looks really good. And I'd encourage people to look at that and to start following minor league teams. You want to be ahead of the casual person in this city. Go watch minor league baseball or go check out the numbers, check out the box scores and learn more about these guys that are down there that'll come up. Because then when everybody just says, well, Bob Nutting doesn't spend, you can say, well, they've got guys coming up the pipeline that are going to be worth it in the end. So I wouldn't expect much of Cahill. We'll see. But let's just say, let's go Bucks and call it a day, I guess, when it comes to getting into Wrigley Field on Friday.
Yeah, to say the least. And if you want to learn more about minor league baseball, since Kyle's had his rounds calling minor league baseball, to say the least, they're at Real Kyle Dawson on Twitter. Certainly hit him up. I'm sure he'll be willing to school you on some of the Pirate prospects.
Absolutely.
And some of the action going on there in minor league baseball as that now gets underway. So as much as it's great to have fans and have maybe the Major League Baseball season that's more legit, more games, more interest overall, you're also having a minor league season at all. So that's a major plus, and not having it would hurt the progress of even the big club. So this is a big deal and a big positive for the Pittsburgh Pirates. I think that adage goes that any team can win any given day when it gets a quality start from its pitcher. When it doesn't, it's much more difficult. They have had quality starts recently, but Trevor Cahill takes the mound, so we'll see if that continues. It has been a roller coaster ride, allowing 7, allowing 1, allowing 5, allowing 1, allowing 7. So it's been up and down. He's due actually for a good one based on the trajectory that he's been gone on this year. We'll see if that continues. And they got to get something more from these hitters, but maybe you don't expect it. Maybe people got spoiled and why it's more of a conversation of surprise, because the reason why they're winning earlier in the year, a lot thanks to the hitting when the pitching wasn't getting it done. And that maybe was more kind of helter-skelter to reality of this team, but there was a few weeks where the hitting was there, the pitching was not. We're now back to kind of normalcy, the pitching being there and the hitting not being there. And we'll see when Hayes returns, how he fits in and who has earned their spot in the lineup and who has no longer, in particular, Phil Evans, based on what we've seen in recent weeks. The Pirates lose this one 4-2 to the San Diego Padres. They now go to a series in Wrigley against the Cubs. Trevor Cahill takes the mound. So something to look at for this team and how much longer he'll be taking the mound, but also look at these individual performances, look at this team as a whole, look at the progress of this team, then evaluate it that way, because obviously this is not a season that anybody is expecting much more. And Ben Cherington won some of those deals in the offseason, some of those trades, which I think is surprising because that's not normally the norm. So give it time, as much as Pirate fans don't love hearing that. And we're still getting a full chat that I didn't even go to. That's oddly all Padres fans still up and a lot of go Padres. And I don't want to deal with another rebuild. And we've been there and done this before. That's flooding the chat. So
sorry, that's how small market baseball works. Sorry.
Right. Yeah. Same old story.
The
Padres had to deal with it for a long time. Yep. The Royals had to deal before they got their pennants. They had to deal with it for a long time. I get it. Other teams maybe seized the day and won more and won pennants, etc. But not Ben Cherington's fault. So it's now a new era. We'll see what happens in this one. Kyle, definitely thank you for the time. We'll definitely bring you back on one of these in the future. Maybe we'll be able to get one of these off before midnight, because this was the earliest of this start time for this series. So Wrigley I can deal with. Chicago I can deal with.
Those are all 220.
Yeah, I saw that. Yeah, 220. That's nice. That is the prime slot, basically, that I'm a fan of. These 640 start times I like as well. So we're done with San Diego, a couple series against them. Happy to be done with that, even though it's an entertaining team to watch for these shows. So Kyle Dawson, definitely thanks for the time there. For Kyle Dawson, for all of us here at Pittsburgh Sports Live and throughout the Now family of networks, the Pirates lose 4-2. The offense not there again, and they can't overcome the lack of offense in this game as they lose to the Padres, now 13-17 on the year, and head to Wrigley. And they get a day off, by the way, a day off before that series begins on Friday afternoon against the Chicago Cubs. So a rare day off for the Pirates. It feels like we never get a day off for one of these. So enjoy your Thursday, Pirate fans, and then enjoy that series against the Cubs.